No one can deny that La Liga has seen a significant decline in recent years, especially with the rise of the Premier League, which attracts new football fans from all over the world, and which even attracts La Liga fans, making the difference between them and the rest of the leagues very clear. And that gap is widening year after year, so much so that everyone is saying that Florentino Pérez wants to create the European Super League because they haven't been able to keep up with the Premier League. But if we go back just 10 years, La Liga was the best league in the world. So what exactly happened to it? And what can be done to get it back to the top? Well, that's what we're going to find out in this video, so keep watching until the end. First of all, let's be clear. Some people, when they want to prove that La Liga is not as attractive as it used to be, they say, nobody watches La Liga. People only watch Real Madrid and FC Barcelona games. Come on, man. When La Liga was at the top, did people watch Levante and Almeria? Of course not. The only difference that makes that period special is that at the time, those two teams were full of legends. Seriously, who doesn't want to watch Pep Guardiola's Barca, even if they are not football fans? On the other hand, we have Real Madrid who buy the best players in the world. So everyone is looking forward to the Clásico months in advance, when all those legends will meet. So in other words, La Liga's return to the top largely depends on the return of the Clásico, a match that everyone agrees is no longer as attractive as it used to be, even though it was the most awaited match in every country in the world. Not only because of the departure of Messi and Cristiano, but also because most of their players are still young and don't have a direct opponent in the opposing team, and the media don't create the drama about them that they used to. So both clubs should have very popular players with strong leadership personalities, which means that apart from the competition between Messi, Cristiano, Guardiola, Mourinho, and between midfielders, there were also players with strong personalities, like Puyol, Ramos, Valdez, Pepe, and many others who were always involved in conflict that made the matches more exciting. And if we try to find out where all those players came from, you will find that FC Barcelona had players from La Masia, and Real Madrid were buying ready-made players. And if you notice that nothing has changed, La Masia still produces excellent talent, but what has changed is that the club is not patient and does not allow them to develop gradually. Any player that has appeared, they promote him as if he were the next Messi or Iniesta, which has caused the players to fail. Real Madrid have also become slow on the transfer market, which has caused them to lose many important players, and they may lose Mbappe too. Don't tell me they are in crisis because of the stadium. They have enough money because they haven't spent anything for years. Tebas also needs to review his roles because he's killing La Liga this way. So the return of La Liga depends largely on the return of FC Barcelona and Real Madrid, especially FC Barcelona, who have been absent from the competition in recent years, and that can only be achieved by having superstars players, because people have become more attached to the players than to the clubs. That doesn't mean that other clubs don't matter if they don't develop. On the opposite, they need to get back as they were before, because they have become one of the very poor clubs in Europe that don't spend anything on new signings and lose good players every year to rich clubs. And so they need to find ways to fund those small clubs or invest more in football academies. Of course, there are clubs that are doing well, like Girona recently, Real Sociedad, Athletic Bilbao, Real Betis, and others. I haven't mentioned Atletico Madrid because they are a big club, but there are clubs that were recently performing well, both in La Liga and in Europe, that are now suffering, like Villarreal and Sevilla. So they need to find ways of supporting them, so that this doesn't happen to them as it has to other clubs who have made their mark in Europe and then disappeared for good. La Liga also needs to find new ways to promote itself, as good marketing can attract fans from all over the world and convince players to go to La Liga rather than other leagues, and more importantly, is the source of new revenue for the league and clubs. But it seems that La Liga isn't doing enough to convince people, because there are some good things happening in the league, but nobody knows about it. Yes, it's true that La Liga has declined, but not as much as some people think. If that weren't the case, you wouldn't find 4 Spanish clubs finishing top of their Champions League group, more than any other league. And there is also the language barrier. As you know, English has helped a lot the Premier League reach more people, whereas in La Liga, for example, they only speak Spanish, which is only understood by Spaniards and some Latin American countries. Language is important because if you only follow the matches, you miss the drama created by the press, TV shows, YouTubers, people's discussions on social media, etc. It's true that there is content in English, but the real drama is in Spanish. Imagine if you understand what this guy is always saying. Of course it's Spanish league and they have the right to speak Spanish, but they shouldn't forget that they have supporters all over the world. And since we are talking about viewers from all over the world, how do you expect people to watch your matches if you schedule them at 9 p.m. European time and on Sunday when everyone is asleep in Asian countries? Even if they want to stay up late, they can't because the next day they have to go to work. And even the Spanish, this schedule doesn't suit them. I mean, imagine if someone wants to attend a match taking place in another city and the next day they have to go to work. This schedule can only be accepted on weekdays because people go to the stadiums after work. That's why you see the Premier League plays all its matches during the day, when people all over the world are awake. On the other hand, no one can deny that one of the reasons for the Premier League's success is money. And so La Liga needs to increase its revenue by all means, and also make facilities and convince investors to buy suffering clubs. Of course, there are clubs that no person or company can own them, but if they reach a difficult stage, they have to change that and open a door for foreign investors to save them. Because let's face it, if English clubs were owned by their members, they wouldn't have achieved this success. And if that's not possible, they have to find ways to make money, because money is the source of everything. All on condition that they act quickly, as long as they haven't yet lost their current and potential fans, because the new generation almost only watches the Premier League and doesn't care about La Liga. In other words, we don't want them to face the fate that Serie A experienced, because Serie A was once the best league in the world, but when they began to struggle, they lost the Generation Z audience, who started watching La Liga and the Premier League. Even players, as you may notice, choose to play for FC Barcelona and Real Madrid, sometimes even for free. This is because they grow up watching these teams. It won't be the same with future generation if they continue like that, and we don't want that, because let's be clear, everyone needs La Liga to get back to what it used to be, or even better, because everyone will benefit. Football fans will have more options to watch, the Champions League will become stronger, and other leagues will strive to develop further to keep up. All this is important if Europe wants to keep up its position in the world of football, especially with the emergence of new investments on other continents.